Hi, and welcome to a new episode of Don't Be a Man About It. How many times have you watched a movie and you felt that the movie have left or has left a good impact or otherwise? CJ, today my guest, a screenwriter, a producer, and a filmmaker. He's here to talk about the impact or the relation between movies and mental health, and also to share his story with mental health. CJ, hi, and thank you for joining.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. So before we go in and talk about all the stories you have for us today, I want to know, how is your heart doing?
My heart. Well, it's been a tough year with lockdown, and I think that's caused me to push, and it's caused me to go into a tremendous amount of reflection. But I'm glad to say that I'm having a happy and positive day today, so my wellness is in a good place.
Happy to hear that. So, CJ, why movies industry? Let's start from there.
Why? How? Well, I think it's an artistic thing. It's a calling. Um, I think some of us are, I think that's a key role we have within humanity in our social circles. I think nature creates storytellers, it creates artists, it creates people that want to get to the truths about life and express those. And for me, it was a calling that came later in life. It's something that you can't really say no to. You can run from it, which is what I was doing for a long time in my life, but eventually it will catch up with you because you don't feel fulfilled. So it's very much a vocational type of occupation, I feel.
I like what you said that you can run from it, but at the end of the day, you have to um, go to the calling, to answer the calling eventually. So that also applies on our struggles with mental health. So a lot of us would run away from their feelings. I don't want to feel sad. I don't want to feel lonely. And I don't want to feel my anxiety. So I'm just going to run away from it and do something else. And then years later, we say, damn it, did not work. So I know that you have been through a lot of situations and struggles with mental health. So, would you just give us a little background on that?
Yeah, I think it comes with the territory. I think that if you are an artistic person, you tend to be very emotionally engaged. I think the world is quite a difficult and scary place. I think that's one reason it drives people into a solitary world where they write and they create. I think the first time I ever experienced any kind of a mental health crisis was when I was a teenager and I had cystic acne, which made me quite freakish and quite repulsive and bullied a lot at school. But like most people, I got into work. I started to build a career. I was a young man. I was earning money, and that distracted me for quite a long amount of time. I had things I needed to get through, challenges that faced me that I felt I could get past. And oddly enough, it wasn't until I became the director of a marketing agency, which is quite a successful place to be, quite a high position to be in. And I had all this stability in my life, like an income and a mortgage, a house, a partner. Um, I just fell apart. I just fell apart. And it was the first time I went to a doctor and I was told I was clinically depressed and I needed to address it. And that was really hard to take, to actually have that confirmation. Ever since then, it's been a battle, and going freelance kind of made it more difficult. And then going into film, wow, that was just like pulling the pin out of a grenade. It was just, it all came out then, and it's been a difficult 10 years, but it's been certainly an adventurous one, and one that I'm very proud to have gotten through and to have overcome a lot within my head, and I've learned a lot from it.
You said you had everything, the job, the title, the family, the partner, everything, and yet you were diagnosed with clinical depression. Did they tell you why? Because some therapists never tell you why or where is it stemming from. They just listen to you and give you what needs to be done. But did you know why did you get clinically depressed? Is it because of your
It's
experience
quite
in school and you did not deal with it and it grew with you, or what was it? Running away from your feelings?
it was interesting. I didn't see a therapist until I was in my mid-30s. Before then, I was dealing with it myself and seeing a GP in England through the NHS service. And so I was in my mid to late 20s when I was a director and I was first diagnosed. And really interestingly, I went to see my GP, and that's just a general doctor who has to deal with everything, and they weren't particularly well trained in mental health. But this doctor said to me, he said, look, I can give you the tablets and they're going to help, but there's something in your life that's wrong and you have to fix that. You have to find that and you have to fix that, because the tablets can only do so much. And oddly enough, through all the therapy I've had since and all the reading and everything else I've been through, that was probably one of the most powerful pieces of advice I ever had. And it made me realize that the problem was it was the person I was working with. It was the director of another director within this marketing agency, who was just combative and militant and constantly seemed to feel attacked by my own success or my own learning, and kind of came back at that with a degree of kind of bullying and knocking me down. And that's not me. That's not my kind of environment, and I don't like fighting back. I've got better things to do in my life. And I gradually came to realize that the job was the problem. Even though it gave me a lot, gave me the title, the income, it was taking so much from me emotionally.
Thank you for sharing that. I work with a lot of executives, and they are in the same
Mm,
hole. Let's call it a hole, where they have the money, they have the cars, they have the luxury lifestyle, they have the families, everything you could imagine, or everything that we work so hard to get. And yet they
yeah.
come to you and say, I'm not happy. Something is wrong. Something is missing. I don't know what's wrong with me. And once you ask them to, okay, step back, take a breath, how about a day or two off your office and let's just do before and after. You can't imagine how relaxed and chilled they would be in those 2 days away from the
Mm,
office. So that's a very important topic or point, which is in your case, it's not corporate, but it's a work environment after all.
mm.
The burnout would lead to depression if we are not paying attention to it and if we are not preventing it or facing it. So thank you for at least making that authentic decision to take yourself out of that environment. Um, what
Thank you.
what was next for you?
I mean, in my case, I was planning to exit this organization. And just like you say, I ended up taking a break. I took a week off. I went up to Scotland, stayed in a cabin. And even during that time, I still received a very angry email blaming me for a lot of things and stuff like that. And it only reinforced things in my head. So I had this plan. I was going to get out. I was going to go and change my career. But I kept holding on a bit more until I was more stable. We'd had 100% house mortgage in 2007, so we were in negative equity, and I just kept holding on. And then I just had this one day where I said, not anymore, no more, and I quit. And I'm really glad I quit, but I'm disappointed it had to become an emotional decision, that it had to get to that point where I was forced to go to a quite animalistic place and go, no, I've had enough. I've quit. I won't do this anymore. I won't be treated like this. I wish that I'd gotten out earlier, had the confidence to do that, because what I did is I went back to freelancing, where I was my own boss, and all my successes went to me, and I felt great, as opposed to being in a situation where the harder I was working and the more I was achieving, I just was constantly being told it wasn't enough, it wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
So that carried me for another few years, and then I had my big breakdown.
Could you tell us more about that?
So I had some big corporate clients, some of them from around the world, Dubai, Singapore, America. Things were going, I'd never earned as much money. It was twice as much as I was earning before, at least. and I was working half the amount of time. So I was really empowered. I felt very free. Things are on the up. And then I had these clients on what are called retainers. Where as a freelance marketer at the time, I was doing print design websites. They were on retainers, so I was getting an income per month, and that was really good. One of my clients outgrew me, so to speak, which is a real frustration you can have in marketing, where, especially when you're independent, where you get a company to a point where it's doing really well and it's grown massively, then you're too small. You can't, it's like, we need to go to a marketing agency. We can't rely on one guy in a bedroom. So this client outgrew me, and I had a meeting one day where I was told, we're only going to do this for a few more months and we're going to go get ourselves a big agency in London. That was tough. A few weeks later, my contact in Dubai walked to the office doors to find security there. You can come in, you can collect your items, and that's it. You've got to go. It was an oil and gas company that had been taken over by a Norwegian entity, and that went. And I just lost 90% of my income in a couple of weeks. And I was okay. I was like, you know what, big whoop, I got here before, I can do it again. I've got my savings, whatever. And I'm carrying on and I'm working and I'm tying up loose ends. And I just stop. And this emotion starts to come from within, deep within, like the pit of my stomach. And I just start weeping. And it's not like I'm crying. I mean, I am crying, but it's not like the kind of crying I'm used to. It's like throwing up this emotion. All this stuff just wants to come out of me. And I end up on the floor and my cats are watching me. And I'm thinking, do I call my partner and tell her to come and do something? Because I don't know what's going on. And I wipe my eyes, take a deep breath. I get back in my chair and I carry on working as if nothing had happened. And that kind of haunted me. Yeah, that breakdown, a proper breakdown, first time I'd ever had one, that kind of haunted me.
So bullying, clinical depression, quitting your job, a nervous breakdown. How did you deal with all of that?
I didn't. I did the typical male thing. I just carried on. I kept thinking, I took the tablets before I got better. I quit my job. I just keep going. I start again, surely, and I just rebuild. And suddenly having no work, very long days, a lack of sleep, I used to get myself to sleep by playing movie scenes in my head. I'd done that for 20 years at least. And I had all these movie scenes that I was playing in my head, but I'd never written any of that down. I'd never done anything with that. It was just a method to get to sleep. Now I've got insomnia and this stuff's going round. And I'm thinking, I can't sleep because I'm thinking of movie scenes. Maybe if I write them down, maybe that's going to help. Maybe that's going to clear my mind. Nope. That was just like opening a Pandora's box, because suddenly I became a writer, like almost overnight. I thought that the writing would be the therapy. The writing was like this purge. It was like hitting the nitrous oxide system on what was going to be a rapid downward descent into the darkest places I've ever been in my life.
It's funny that you say that the writer came out of me overnight, but I think that any kind of talent or skill that you suddenly realize it's in you, it's already there. It just needed something to let it out, to give it the space to get out of it. In your case, it was writing. I know a lot of people who started journaling just for fun. Now they're publishing their own books. Um, but what I want to ask, what I'm mostly curious of, is that for a man like yourself, who has been through a lot, and I'm pretty sure that you're just sharing the what's on the surface,
Hmm.
being aware of your situation and your struggle and your crisis, why haven't you gotten any professional help?
Well, I did eventually.
Mm.
And I think, again, I'm a guy, I'm in the north of England. I grew up in an area where most people are farmers, and then went and lived in an industrial city. it was guys don't get therapy, or to a degree. I mean, I love our National Health Service. I think it's incredible, but the horror stories about actually getting help is really difficult, and that for mental health. And that's where I started. I went back to that surgery where that GP was. It wasn't the same GP, but I went to a different GP, and they gave me the score sheet. You know, how often are you thinking these dark thoughts? And they add it all up, and they said we'll put you into the system to get help. I dropped out the system somehow. They lost my file or whatever. So I ended up on my own for quite a while, just dealing with it. And that happens very often. The waiting lists are only getting longer. And we ended up finding a local therapist. And that was the first time I ever actually spoke to a therapist. And that was a mixed experience.
I was just going to ask, how was your experience?
Um, it was an issue where we didn't have a rapport, and I get on with most people. I'm a very easygoing person. I want everyone to like me, and this therapist was very expensive, and I was going with my partner, and it was was it couples therapy, wasn't it? And I don't know. I wasn't getting a great deal out of it. That wasn't a great experience to start with, but it got better with other therapists. It just wasn't a great match.
Now knowing that, what would you, I don't, so there are two questions. What would you wish you knew before getting therapy? And the second thing would be, what would you say to any man who's resisting or scared or in doubt of getting therapy?
I think I wish I'd known the power of just talking about these issues and just sharing them. I wish I'd known, not just because you can have a conversation about it, or you can hear a conversation about it, but actually saying it through your own mind and actually processing those thoughts and realizing sometimes how ridiculous they are when you say them out loud was very powerful. I think that's a very powerful area of therapy, and being asked the right questions so that you will process this logic and then realize how illogical it is or how emotional it is. So I wish most men knew that just going in and talking is incredibly therapeutic, and being able to do that with someone privately who won't disclose it to anyone else. I know for a lot of men it's very powerful. They don't have to go to their friends. They don't have to feel judged. And the second question was, what was the second
For
question?
men resisting or skeptical about therapy.
Yeah, I think I'm of the view now where if I had the money, I would just have as much therapy as I could get. Like, I think it's like going and get your car tuned up. It's like going and getting your house renovated. It's like
That's a nice
reinstalling.
explanation, especially for me.
Thank you. Okay, it's like reinstalling all the software on your PC.
Yeah,
It's a really powerful. It's like getting in the gym and having a coach. Like, it's getting into this thing in your head, this incredible device in your head, which does get itself in a complete mess sometimes. And you can get in and you can reprogram that, and you will only feel better for it, even if it means facing some tough things in your life, that you're scared of addressing.
that's a nice to put it. Nice way to put it. Thank you. So CJ, at the beginning, my introduction was about movies and how they leave an impact. I know for a fact that there are quite a few movies who literally changed my life, or to not sound very dramatic, changed my perception of a lot of things, whether it was love or relationships or even mental health, families, everything. And I could go to that movie as a reference, as a reminder. For me, I'm really connected with movies and music. So for you to be a producer and a filmmaker, how do you think in 2021 now, with the century we are in, movies are doing a good job in supporting mental health?
I don't think that a lot of the blockbusters are.
Mm.
So I think so in a movie you have what's called theme. Within storytelling, you have what's called theme. And the theme within a story is usually something that's life affirming, just like you were talking about, something that makes you go, huh, I
Mhm.
not considered that about life, or I didn't realize that everyone else felt that same way about life. And that has caused me to change, or it's caused me to double down on something I wasn't sure about. So you should come out of a film usually having learned something or feeling more reassured about something. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's positive. Like Romeo and Juliet is a tragic story, but it teaches us that families feuding over what seems like nothing anymore, they're just feuding for the sake of it, hurts the generations below them. And you can't stop love, and you can't stop the reaction to that. That's powerful, even though it's tragic. So the role of a movie is to do that. The issue is what we have now is plot has kind of overtaken that. So when you watch a modern blockbuster now, it's all about the plot, and advertising is so pervasive within that. Films now are sponsored by so many companies that what you get is you get a lot of lifestyle stuff. So I mean, one of the most sort of extreme versions of that, things like the Transformers movie franchise, which is pushed at children, but is full of flash cars. It's very sexually charged. It's, it focuses on this really quite high profile status orientated stuff. And yeah, you can say, well, it's about friendship, guys, and teamwork. Like, does it really focus on that? You compare that to something like the Lego movies. The Lego movies, even though they're a blockbuster movie, are really, really focused on the theme of the story. They're focused on, I mean, the Batman movie, for example, which is all about accepting teamwork with the people around you and family, really quite deep, profound stuff. Sometimes the kids stuff show it better. The really young kids stuff show it better than ever. So, yeah, I think film can be powerful, and I think that what's good to see is a lot of the new stuff that's aimed at the younger audiences. They want the good. I'm watching The Boys at the moment on Amazon Prime, which is a satirical take on superhero movies. It's focused on some really good, wholesome values deep down, even though it's edgy. It's focused on some really good stuff. So I think film can take you in different directions. You got to be careful. It's like the music you listen to. You listen to really angry, high RPM stuff, it's going to put you in an angry mood, potentially. You
That's
listen to
true.
nice stuff, maybe different.
That's true. I like what you said about Batman. I've never looked at Batman that way, to be honest. I so here's something about me. When I watch a movie, if I like it, I would watch it again and again and again because I know for a fact that every time I'll be focusing on a different thing. It could be the story, the dialogue, the hidden messages. What is that character doing? Why is he doing what he's doing? So I go really deep when I watch a movie. And there was once I was also having a conversation with a movie maker, and I said, "Why don't we have a lot of mental health movies?" He said, "Because they don't sell." And I was like, "Okay, so let's agree to that statement, but let's debate it. Let's have a conversation. If we are getting A stars to feature in a movie, and that movie speaks about depression or suicide or mental health or any kind of crisis, that movie is going to sell. So is it really that of an issue as a that's my logic. If I get,
Mm.
I don't know, Tom Cruise and say, "Hey, Tom, I have a movie that talks about men's depression." If he said yes, and people saw that Tom was featured in a movie that talks about men's depression, it's gonna sell. So, what is the real problem here?
Well, generally speaking, the industry does have fears over certain topics or certain genres, and it assumes that they won't sell because sometimes that's a case of Chinese whispers, or it's a case of just people just believe in an axiom that doesn't actually exist. The issue you've got is that films are generally escapism. So there's a belief that people want to go into a movie theater and they want to be cheered up and they want to come out the other side feeling really, really positive and vibrant about life and excited, like they've been on a roller coaster. the idea that people go in and they come out and it's been really hard and it's been really tough, and then they go back to their lives, which are really hard and really tough. People worry about that selling, particularly globally around the world. Yes, you can get the A-listers involved in what would be effectively an indie film, and typically those indie films have done well. The problem is we only really allow one a year, really, and that will be the one that wins the Oscars, wins the Academy Awards, wins the Emmys, and then we'll cherish and we'll celebrate that, as silver linings or something like that, and go, isn't that a wonderful, wonderful film? And we'll ignore 99% of them, and it's so hard to make money back. People are going to stay away from anything which is polarizing or controversial.
Hmm. Okay, so let's play a game. You've got all the money that you want, open budget, nothing is limiting. What would be the movie you would produce?
I have a script of mine called Blueberry Special. It's all set in a diner. It's got a very limited number of characters, and on the surface, it's a pulpy thriller. It's a gang heist gone wrong, and these people come back to this diner. One of them's been stabbed. She's probably going to die, and it follows the lives of these people. But it's very dialogue heavy, and it focuses on these people's views on lives and the struggles that they're going through. And the theme is perfection, an obsession with perfection, and how that affects us in our lives. And even the assassin, this character called Mad Addie, she is dark, deadly, dangerous, a true killer, but she's obsessed, and she's carrying all this baggage of what's happened in her life, and she's trying to improve her life because she's worried about a potential afterlife and what's going to happen to her and things like that. So I would make this contained, moody, dialogue heavy thriller set in a diner with all these people talking, because it would be getting a lot of this out, talking about a lot of this stuff. And that's by far one of my most popular scripts, because people feel like
Is it
it
out
purges
yet?
something. It's not out. It's a script. It's what's called a spec script. So it's a script I've written that one day I hope to see made, and I'm hoping to make that myself, perhaps in the next 10 years.
I hope so too.
Thank you.
Uh, so one question is popping into my mind. After going through whatever you went through, all this, and you're not in an easy industry as well, how do you take care of yourself today? And do you feel that your depression still takes a toll on you, or you're in a much better place? So,
Well, as I mentioned, the possibly the worst thing I could have done was to try and go into writing, and I think compounding that was to go into film, because writing itself is very solitary. It's very hard to find success. It's very hard to pay your bills through writing, and it pushes you. It really, particularly novel writing, which I have done and I don't do anymore, that pushes you into an incredibly intense place where you dream in the world of your characters. You go out, you have maladaptive daydreaming, you think like them, you're living their lives, you're going through what they're going through. That's really tough. If you combine that with filmmaking, the filmmaking world it's superficial, it's ostentatious, it's cutthroat, it's very high profile. People can think that you have much more success or have a different lifestyle than you actually have, because they just go, oh, it's the movie industry. And everyone who's involved in it's going through their own struggle. So you yourself are fighting against a lot of factors. It's like if you have mental health issues, I think if you want to go through a boot camp, I think trying to break into film would be like that. I imagine things like fashion, modeling, they would probably be worse. But I think film's probably in the top 10 of like worst areas you could go into, because it feels all the really paranoid sides of you, and it pulls you from place to place. So it's a constant daily battle to make sure that I'm not getting into a bad funk, or sometimes accepting that. And what I love is that I'm surrounded by collaborators where we're very open about that. Even my male collaborators, and in some cases it's new to them to do this. But I will say, dude, I'm having a really bad week and I can't get out of how I'm feeling, and I'm down, and I don't want to get into your head. I don't want, and I need to just go, and I need to deal with this. Or I can say, hey, I need to chat with you, otherwise I'm just going to go crazy because I'm on my own and I'm getting into a bad place, and just chatting with you would be amazing. And it's not just actors and producers, it's teamsters, who are the glue that holds everything together, the people that drive the trucks and move the trailers around and bring the world together. To make those people, particularly the guys, don't talk about it typically that much, but they all have their own struggles, and it's great to chat with them and to share this stuff and support one another.
That's a very important side of of the industry, because not only, as you said, not only in the film industry, but I went once to Sri Lanka for a vacation, and the person who was giving us the tickets, he was just sharing a story about a country he was working in, but they were not so kind to him because of his nationality. So his government had to ban them, the Sri Lankan, to stop going to that country. And he said, even though some people were kind to me, but most of them were not, I would just be happy if someone said, "How are you?"
Wow.
I don't think I've cried on a vacation as much as I cried on that day. For me, this is basic. Like for
Yeah.
me, what we are doing here on this show, or on the, for me, my mind says basics, but reality is something else. No, we have to keep reminding people to be kind, to be compassionate, to be empathetic, to stop judging, to just take a breath, to listen. You just said the power of listening and the power of
Mm.
talking. For me, this is a given, but it's not. So what is it that you have now, but if you had earlier, let's say 10 years ago, 15 years ago, would have made a difference? Or how would your life be different other than having someone to talk to?
I think, you know, I think collaboration
Mm,
in creativity can be very powerful. And I think it's when you have complete control over something like you are when you're writing, is you can become very possessive over that. And you can not want anyone else to get near it. And you can feel like this is my expression, this is my voice. I have a picture in my head and I want everyone to see that as it is.
mhm,
And I think I had a lot of fear of collaboration. What I didn't respect is that when you write a movie script, that's like a gift to a team of people, a team of other creatives, and you have that document. You can always go back to that document and go, this was mine, and you can show that to people, or you can share that. But the the costume designer doesn't have an opportunity to express themselves till there's a movie and there's some kind of basic blueprint they can work off, but
mhm,
they have to have freedom. The actors need to be able to explore the characters in a scene and go through that process. The director needs to go through a path of discovery themselves. Absolutely everyone deserves that opportunity to go on their own journey. And we can all do that together in a very kind environment.
mhm.
And I wish I hadn't been so fearful of collaboration earlier on, because it's actually so much more wonderful than just sitting in a dark room, with not much light and not being watered, this withering plant, just trying to live in this imagination. And it doesn't matter if you fail when you collaborate. It doesn't matter if you don't meet that mark. It doesn't matter if one of you doesn't quite meet that mark on that day, because you're a brigade. You're all together. You're all trying to not fight something, but you're just trying to trudge through something to get to like a brighter light that you can then share with everyone else and all take ownership of.
That's beautiful. Beautifully said. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. So, What would you name your life if it were a movie?
For me, I think it's truth. I think it's an obsession with truth, because I think truth is so hard to find, and it's so powerful when you even so much as find the tiniest little ounce of it in life, because it gives you guidance, or it gives you hope, or it gives you just even the freedom to accept something which is bad or hard to accept. Like being able to accept that most of us don't achieve these wild dreams. Most of us don't go to live in a mansion and drive a Bentley
Yeah.
and be universally loved. I think if you can accept that that isn't a truth about life, and that the smaller things are more beautiful and more powerful, that's incredible. That can change, that can bring you so much happiness and take away so much stress. So for me, the light is truth.
I love that. Thank you. TJ, thank you so much for being here on the show. What would you like to men take away from this?
I think that I think if we talk about being a man, and a lot of what drives us to be a man, to be dependable, to be supportive, to be a provider, all those quite perhaps patriarchal things that have been ingrained into us that we're driven by. And maybe some of them are natural, I don't know. But the fact is, we have a lot of men my age who are driven by that. I think, please understand that getting your mind in the right place and working on your mind like you would work on any muscle in your body or any element of your life, be it your finances or the house you live in or the car you drive, having a strong, peaceful, mindful, healthy brain is going to do so much, not just for you, but everyone around you. It's going to empower everyone around you. You're going to be able to help people. You're going to be able to support people. You're going to be able to understand people. And that that becomes infectious. And what a wonderful thing to spread around the world. And you can help your fellow men become that way too.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
Amen.
Thank you, CJ. Thank you.
Thank you.